Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to a brand new video here today. Now, with yesterday being a very big day in F1 history, obviously, at the Turkish Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton winning that Grand Prix in exceptional circumstances, a crazy race, but it was one to seal out his 7th World Championship. I thought today we'd hop on and we'd have a go at ranking Lewis Hamilton's 7 World Championships, asterisks so far, potentially. Obviously, we don't know exactly what he's doing in the future, but I'm certain he's probably going to be staying in the sport at least, you would say, next year, and has a good chance of going for an 8th. But in today's video, we're going to kind of go back in history, look over these last 7 World Championships, and rank them in order of, it's difficult to really say how impressive they are to me, maybe how much of an achievement they felt like, how much of a challenge it was, maybe versus his championship rivals in each specific year. It's kind of hard to, it's very, very fluid on how you kind of rank championships in kind of your opinion. I guess that's the whole point. So I'll always leave a link in the description to the tier list that I'm using, that I've created, so you guys can do your own one and maybe tweet me or whatever in terms of what your opinion on it is. But yeah, I thought we'd do this for 7 because obviously it's a very big landmark to equal Michael Schumacher and become, equal best, highest number of championships. So let's delve in and let's have a little trip down memory lane. I'm sure also spout some controversial opinions that maybe some of you don't agree upon with some of these, looking back at how some of these championships were maybe. Right, so we have 4 tiers only in this one because we've got biblical, really impressive, great, and alright. Because I don't think, there doesn't really deserve to be a trash tier here, because I don't think you can really say any championship, any F1 world champion in the year they won it, I don't think you can say that championship win was trash in terms of, like, anyone who's won a championship has clearly, done very well to get it, because not many do it in terms of the number of drivers entering F1 and the ones that actually go on to win. So I don't think meh or trash was really a tier I could put in. So we've only got 4 tiers. I'm also going to say and put a challenge on myself that I can only put a maximum of 2 championships in one tier. So I have to really pick between championships for different tiers, especially when it comes to, I guess, really impressive to great to biblical. I think alright, I think I already know what's going to be in there, but I think these 3 tiers, that's going to be tough because there's quite a few of these that are very, very close, I feel, in terms of the challenge that Lewis had that year, so to speak. But let's go through them. We're going to start off with, I'll start off with alright, get the kind of worst one out of the way, in my opinion, and that's going to be 2015. I think a lot of you will agree with me. That was the one where pretty much mentally he had defeated Rosberg that season. I felt he had Rosberg in his back pocket following quite a tasty 2014 season where they first kind of, came onto the scene as 2 people who could actually go for the championship in that Mercedes car. But 2015, I look back at that. Obviously, this is also going to be, a little bit of a test of my memory of how I remember these things. So, like 5 years on or whatever. But 2015, I just remembered it as a bit of a walk in the park for Hamilton. Rosberg didn't really give him too much of a challenge. So much so, like, obviously, I think this was the year they had that moment at USA where it was raining. It was absolute torrential rain. I think he won it at USA, wasn't it? And in the post kind of pre-champagne podium ceremony, the kind of room, a cool-down room, that's the word I'm looking for. Obviously, that kind of infamous moment where he kind of, I think it was chucked the towel at him or whatever to dry his face or whatnot, or his cap, sorry, and threw it back at him with the water bottle as well. So, yeah, that was a little bit tense, but it was kind of, that was the only reason it got that tense that year at the end of that one was because Rosberg was so pissed off that basically just got trounced that season, I think. So that's going to go in alright. I don't think there's going to be another championship that goes in that, because I think that deserves its own tier, and that's the worst one of the lot, in my opinion. We're going through, let's have a little think about this. So we've got 08, 2014, 2017, 18, 19, and 20. So 08, obviously his first championship win. Many years ago now, and obviously it's still such an infamous moment of how you win a championship, on the very death of it at Brazil. So I feel like for that reason, the way he won it like that, also it was his, only 2nd year in F1 to win it that young and win it against such odds, and the Ferrari was a very good car that year, and the Ferrari team were working well, and if things had gone differently, it may have been Massa's championship. Equally as well, obviously, it could have been Hamilton's in different kind of scenarios. You can say that about every single one, but that was very, very, very sick, and it's still, you know, as I said, a very infamous clip. So I feel like for now, temporarily, I'm going to place it in Biblical, the top tier. Also because it's his first championship, and obviously if you're going to be a 7-time world champion, I feel like your first championship's always quite special to you as well. So I'm going to place that there for now. We may swap around. Obviously, I'm only allowed 2 per tier, so I've only got 1 slot left on Biblical, so I need to pick wisely here. So let's look at the rest. So we've got basically the Mercedes era. Obviously, we've already got won the ones with Rosberg, and obviously 2016 was when Rosberg won it and actually defeated him. Right, let's have a gander. 2017 to 18. These two are going to be difficult because I think in both situations, the Ferrari was a very, very good car that season. I think 2018 was more of a challenge than 2017 for Hamilton because the Ferrari effectively it was a better version of the 2017 car in 2018. Even though it looked a little bit quite different in areas, it was kind of almost like an evolution. It kind of fixed the problems the 2017 Ferrari didn't have, and that meant it was more of a challenge for Hamilton in 2018. You know, we saw so many times in 2018, the Ferrari just looked so quick. The Ferrari won against Mercedes in their own backyard at Silverstone, places like that. Obviously, there was also a bit of, you know, Vettel making the mistake at Germany. Did that then mentally kind of click for him and he wasn't able to pull it together. He then had a few spins, obviously, for the remainder of the season that helped Hamilton. But at the same time, there's no denying how good that Ferrari car was. So I think 2018 is going to be really impressive. And just because 2017, I don't think it was as impressive as 2018, I've got to put it in great. The Ferrari car was, again, very good in 2017. Even, I think Vettel actually said it's his favourite Ferrari car he's driven, the 2017 car. But there was an issue in qualifying for them sometimes, and also that car wasn't, you know, great everywhere, so it was less of a challenge for Hamilton in that respect, and the Mercedes as a whole. So I've put that in great, but it was still a very decent, obviously, like, you know, they started off the year on the back foot. Ferrari looked like, oh, wow, they're going to actually really challenge, and in the end, Hamilton, there was that inflection point where Hamilton just ran with it since Singapore, wasn't it, with the crash with the 2 Ferraris and Verstappen, and since then Hamilton just steamrolled it then to the end. So I'll put that in great for that kind of reason. But I don't know, I might want to change that depending on what we think of these other ones, because we've got 2014, 2019 and 2020. So 2019, last season, against the Ferraris. Very, very quick Ferrari, due to, obviously, we don't know the full reason, but we're pretty sure it's something to do with the engine and some sort of oil burning or whatnot. A very quick Ferrari, but even though the Ferraris were quick, especially at the kind of middle stage of the season, there was those three races where Leclerc won and Vettel won. It was 3 different circuits, and you know, even Martin Brundle at the time said that's a little bit worrying. You know, that the Ferrari is that good around 3 different circuits. Are we actually going to maybe see a bit more of a challenge at the end? But if we really look back at it, the 2019 title, even though it was quite exciting, there were some amazing races. You know, Germany springs to mind, at Hockenheim. What other ones have we got? Well, I mean, just the wins that Ferrari got were very special in terms of for Leclerc, especially getting those wins. There were some boring ones. France, very, very dull. So overall, I think 2019, even though I do look back at it, is a pretty enjoyable season to watch. For him, for his title, I think it was just great. I think there was some times where, yeah, it was actually quite tough against the Ferrari cars, but in the end, I think it was just great. To be fair, I actually, you could put it in all right, because even though the Ferraris were quick, it never actually felt like Hamilton was really that under pressure, like, we're being honest. So I don't know, we'll put it in great just because there was a bit more adversity versus the Ferraris compared to 2015, where it was just against his teammate. And like I said, I don't think Rosberg really ever gave him a challenge in 2015. 2014, now Rosberg gave him a big old challenge. That was a really enjoyable season to watch. Really, really enjoyable. Obviously, they had that duel in the desert, which was a big standout still. Really banging race. One of the best Bahrain Grand Prix ever in terms of those two. They were so far ahead of the field, though. That was the only thing that might ruin this championship in terms of looking back at it and ranking it, because the Mercs were so dominant. But Rosberg gave him a fight all the way to the end. Obviously, at the end, it was a big shame that the last race, Rosberg had an issue with his car, and it was double points, because that could have been quite spicy if Rosberg could have actually done something that last race with double points. Also, let's never talk about that again, double points. My God, that was a Very weird time in F1. Very, very weird time. It feels even, I can't even comprehend actually like being like, oh yeah, there's actually double points in the last race for some random reason. It's Abu Dhabi of all places. Pretty meh circuit to kind of have double points at. But it was a big fight. I think Rosberg gave him a good run. Obviously, it's the first time they had that kind of dynamic of having a winning car and being teammates. So I think it was quite intense in that regard. And also, that was the kind of beginning of the end of their kind of friendship in F1, and rather kind of the beginning of their rivalry of kind of, obviously not being friends. It's very hard to maintain friendships like that, I think, once you're in a championship fight. So it's good. It's very good. But the only reason I'm hesitating is because 2020, here we are. Now, yes, the Mercedes has been the dominant car. It's actually been probably one of the most dominant Mercedes years yet. But I think for what the year has been, I think you've got to give it some thought in terms of, yes, also it's his 7th title. Maybe next year, if he was to get his 8th title next year, we don't know. Let's not, let's keep it fair to all the other drivers. If he was to get his 8th title next year, that would surely, I think, for me, be in biblical along with his first title, just because it's his first title ever in the way he won it as well was crazy. And then if he was to eclipse and overtake Michael Schumacher and become the most winningest driver in the history of the sport with 8 titles, then it would have to be right up there. But right now, equaling 7 is still a very, very incredible achievement of what he's done, especially from what was a massive gap from his first championship, as he said on his team radio, in terms of dreaming about it. You don't really ever dream about it, I don't think, especially for him with his background coming from the roots he came from through karting and whatnot, and his dad sacrificing so much. He didn't really think he would even get that high, so to achieve that is insane. And with the year we've had with COVID, it's been tough on everyone on the planet to, having to do this whole self-isolating and, social distancing, kind of, especially for these guys, sportsmen, people in jobs where they fly around, they have to kind of stay in COVID-secure bubbles. So he's had to kind of, dig deep for that, kind of keep fit, keep himself motivated during lockdown. Season begins. It was a very hectic start to the season, let's remember. And even though Mercedes have been very, very dominant, it's actually still been one of the craziest F1 races I think I've watched in a while, in terms of enjoyment level. It's actually been very, very enjoyable. There's been some snoozes, but I think F1 is the sort of sport where you always have those. And so you kind of need those to make the other ones exciting. So even though there have been some absolute stinkers of Grand Prix this season, where it's been a kind of walk in the park for him potentially for Mercedes. This season's very, very impressive. Like the way he won the championship literally yesterday at Turkey. I mean, he span on that one, and I thought, okay, so we're not going to get a Hamilton win. He's not, and we said it at the time on Backseat Driver, me and Niran, he was like, after all of this, imagine he wins, and he did. And he just keeps on doing it. And he's done it. And he's had so many races this season where he's just come out with the win somehow. Obviously, some luck's been involved. So it's a tough one because I feel like sentimentally, this is quite a biblical championship win. But in terms of real fight, if we're being honest, I'm going to say really impressive. And I'm going to put this in biblical. If we look at just the racing and the challenge he's had, then I'd put this in great. I'll put 2017 up here because the Ferrari was much better of a challenger in 2017 to put it in really impressive, and there's not been really any challenges, so we put this in great in terms of I'd still say it's not all right. I'd still say it's great because I think it's much better than 2015 was, just because of the adversities had to go through this year. Every driver has done it, but the fact that he's done it and then won the championship, and some of the races, like I said, he's won, have been crazy. So I don't know, maybe that's the order. Great, really impressive, like that. I just feel like for sentimental value of what he's done yesterday, I just put this in really impressive just for that. But if I really am honest, you maybe could have swapped those round, but that's my opinion. I would love to know what you guys make of it. Either if you want to make a tier of your own, I'll link this one in the description and you can tweet me, or you can just tell me in the comments below what you'd put in each tier, like with a little comment, and maybe just a reason why, or maybe a reason particularly why you disagree with something I've done in terms of the ordering here, because obviously I'm not a Hamilton fan. I've not been a fan of an F1 driver since Jenson Button left the sport. Ever since he left, I've just been watching the sport as a neutral. So I wouldn't say I'm a massive fan to the point where I, watch back races of his, of wins or whatever, or I know intricately or whatever, or I've read articles or I read all these kind of news things, you know, about Hamilton and about his championship wins. I never do that, you know. Once the race is over, once the kind of punditry's done on the TV, that's it. That's me done for F1. I don't really tune into it until we get to the next kind of practice session for the next race. So I don't know if any of you guys are mega Hamilton fans out there and you kind of have a bit of a different way of looking at it. Maybe if you've read into, you know, what Hamilton's personally said about these seasons, maybe you've got an inkling of, you know, maybe a better order for this in terms of how impressive they are for him as an individual, as a human, and as a sportsman. But that is my ranking Lewis Hamilton's World Championships. I thought I wanted to do some kind of video revolving around Lewis Hamilton, because obviously yesterday was a day in history. To win your 7th title it's just bonkers, absolutely mad, and I'm sure he'll go on to do even more. So I wanted to do something. I thought we'd just have a little bit of fun by ranking his championships instead, rather than a bog standard just talk to camera sort of video. But you know, we kind of did some analysis there of his championships throughout that. So if you guys did enjoy the video, then hit that like button. As I said, let me know what you guys make of this ranking and your own one in the comments below if you disagree or do agree with some of those points. And if you are new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been aarava. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.